It's my pleasure to introduce you today to Sweeney Todd, Mr. Len Cariou.
Hey ho! That too. And Harry Townsend.
Len Cariou doesn't really need an introduction. He's so well known in the Broadway community, in all of the American theater, and of course he is a star of Blue Bloods, which is now in its 10th season. We're going to talk a lot about Sweeney Todd, I hope, but let's start with what Mr. Cariou is up to right now. He's on the New York stage, in fact, just a couple of blocks from here, in a show called Harry Townsend's Last Stand. Will you tell him a little bit about Harry and his last stand?
Harry's a widower, has a son and a daughter that are twins. We don't get to meet the daughter. We do get to meet the son, Alan. He's a widower living alone now for the last 5 years in a house that he and his wife built and had their children in. And they want him to get out of the house because he's starting to lose it a bit. But he fights like a madman not to go. And he's a very funny guy. Really got good sense of humor, a fine wit, and he plays his son because he knows what buttons to push. And Alan is kind of the butt of a lot of his jokes, but they do have a good relationship, really deep down, and. The play is about Alan. His daughter has been taking care of him for the last 2 or 3 years, and now she can't do it anymore because it consumes all of her time. And she's married and has a husband, the fourth husband, And so she asks her brother to come and try and talk her father into moving into a home. And he does. Try. And that's all I'm going to tell you.
The New York critics have talked about the virtuoso performances. You are playing opposite an actor who has also been on Blue Bloods.
Yes.
And
Bierko. Right, and 20 years ago did the revival of
The Music Man.
Music Man, yeah, and was nominated for a Tony Award. So it's we got some legs up there. Let me put it that way.
I know you don't read reviews, but Elizabeth Vincentelli, who is certainly no critical pushover, said in the New York Times that in Harry she could see, quote, exactly what Cariou brought to the demon barber Sweeney Todd, a role he originated and won a Tony for in 1979. Vincentelli's review praises the two actors as first fine-tuned performances and persuasive stage, and as having persuasive stage rapport. And she also quite rightly praises Karen Carpenter's light touch with direction. How's it been working with Karen Carpenter?
It was a joy. We had a really good time. The intimacy of this piece, it's in a tiny theater, 150 seats. The set is quite extraordinary, I think. And you're really in the living room with the two guys. And people of all ages have been relating to this piece, not just the octogenarians. Young people have come and seen it, and they seem to enjoy it just as much because, unfortunately, it's something that's going to happen to them in the future if it hasn't happened to them with their grandparents already. So,
and by the way, it's just been extended to April 5th.
Yes.
Len, the occasion for this discussion is the 40th anniversary of the original production of Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Harold Prince, who directed the Sondheim Hugh Wheeler work, was very important in your career. Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Mr. Prince?
Well, it started, funnily enough, in 1970. I was just doing my first Broadway musical, originating a role in a Broadway musical in Applause with Lauren Bacall, and we were about to go out of town, and we had a gypsy run-through at the Schubert Theater. I had never been to a gypsy run-through, so I really didn't know what it was very much. But it's really, if you don't know, it's pretty much like this, with a bare stage and a piano and a few props and some work lights. And you just do a run-through of the play for the gypsies who are in shows and wouldn't be able to see it otherwise. When it was over, it was very, very warmly received. And the audience came up onto the stage. And a whole bunch of us, I was a rookie, mind you. I was the new guy in town. And I got kind of cornered by a lot of people. And so I was taking the congratulations. I mean, I was kind of flabbergasted by it, actually. And Ron Field, who was our director, came over to me and said to me, "What did Hal say?" And I said, "Hal who?" And he said, "Come on, Hal Prince." And I said, "I don't know who Hal Prince is. I'd never met the man." And he said, "He shook your hand. The guy standing over there with the glasses on top of his head." And I said, "Oh, you really want to know?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Fine work, young man. One of the best young leading men I've seen in a long time. I hope we get to work together sometime."
At that point, you were not really a performer in musical theater. You had come to New York, to Broadway, previously, first in Aeschylus, the House of Atreus.
Yes.
And then
Henry V.
Henry V. And the first was from
Guthrie.
The Guthrie, right, with Tyrone Guthrie directing?
Yes.
And the second was from Stratford, Connecticut?
Yeah, the American Shakespeare Theater, directed by Michael Kahn.
But you'd previously worked in Canada at both at the Manitoba Theatre Centre, now the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, and at Stratford, isn't it?
Stratford, Ontario, yeah. The Stratford Shakespeare Festival.
How did you get from Stratford, Ontario to Minnesota?
Douglas Campbell, who is a Brit that worked both with Guthrie and with Michael Langham in Stratford, was then the artistic director of the Guthrie, and Guthrie was coming to Minneapolis to do the Oresteia. Douglas came to Stratford and saw me working there, introduced himself and said, "I would like you to come and join our company." And so I was thrilled to death to be able to do it. So I said, "Yeah, I'll come. Bell's on." And then just to finish up with Harold Prince, or do you want me to go on?
Well, we're not finished with Mr. Prince, that's for sure.
Okay.
But go wherever you want.
Yeah. Well, so I went there to the Guthrie, and I was there for like 3 seasons. And then I got a call from Mr. Prince's office saying that he was sending me a script to a Little Night Music, and would I consider coming in and auditioning for the role of Carl Magnus. I read the script, and it was a wonderful script. There were no lyrics by Sondheim at that point, but it was a really good book by Hugh Wheeler, and I said, well, I'm not going to play, I don't want to play Carl Magnus because I've already played him about 10 different ways to Sunday in my career, but I'm not going to miss the chance to sing for Mr. Sondheim. So I went, and I sang, and Harold Prince said to me then, he said, we have a script now with some lyrics in it, and would you take it home and read it, and we'll talk in the morning. So I said, okay. I hadn't said to him I didn't want to do Carl Magnus. I wasn't going to blow the chance previously, be previous. So I took it home and I read it, and thought, what a wonderful book. And the lyrics for the first song were so extraordinary. I thought the man is a genius. The character Frederick is a lawyer, and his first song is called Now. And the first lyric was, now as the sweet imbecilities tumble so lavishly onto her lap, now there are 2 possibilities. A, I could ravish her. B, I could nap. And it went on, and it got better, and it got better. And I went, Harold called me the next day and said, did you read it? I said, yeah. I said, the first song is a genius song. Frederick sings. And he said, well, we've decided we want you to play that part. And I thought, what? I was only 30 at the time, I think. I said, the guy's supposed to be 45 years old or something. And he said, don't worry about it. It's a period piece. Nobody will ever question it. So that's how that happened.
And that's how you got your second Tony nomination.
Yes.
Because you were nominated for Applause as well.
Yep.
Before we go on to Sweeney, would you tell us a little more about Applause? It was quite a production, quite an event.
Well,
based on All About Eve.
Oh, good. I was just going to say that it was based on that film All About Eve, starring Bette Davis. And I had the opening song in the score. I'm a director. I'm Miss Bacall's lover, and it's opening night in the first scene of the play, and I'm going to Los Angeles on the red eye that night, and she's upset, and I sing a song that we called "Think How It's Gonna Be," and the lyric starts. Dry your pretty eyes and let me have a smile. Think how it's gonna be when we're together again. Like that. I was at a matinee one day, Wednesday it was, and out of the corner of my eye, I see in the first row nudging and people pointing, and I'm standing up there trying to sing this song. And finally I see that Miss Bacall sees what's going on in the first row too. And she, is looking up at me, like, because I'm singing to her. And then she gets this thing and she sees people doing this. And she looked down and then she didn't know quite what to do. my fly was open and my shirt tail was sticking out. So I turned around in the middle of the song and zipped up my... turned around and flashed that famous smile.
Miss Bacall, of course, is Lauren Bacall, who had a spectacular film career and was married to Humphrey Bogart.
And Jason Robards.
And Jason Robards. But just as this was your first Broadway musical, this was her first Broadway musical.
Yeah, it was.
What was it like working with Lauren Bacall?